I stepped into the taxicab and consumed with my own thoughts about the case. I'd finally caught my break, but it was a dud. I hadn't realised it, but I'd been revelling in real detective work. Once I learned it was all bunk, my mind reverted to its incessant nagging. I wondered if I was just a puppet to some two-bit mobster. I was hardly bringing much justice to anybody, which made me unsure of what exactly it was I was doing. I suppose I was wasting my time. It all came back to the same basic premise. "You're failing," my inner voice said. I began to feel nauseous in the car. My mind repeated its last thought. "You are failing. You're failing. You're failing. You're failing." And then everything turned black. As if someone had shut out all the lights. My naked arms faded into view. They emitted a soft white glow. I rubbed my eyes, willing them to focus, but without success. Between my fingers, it appeared in the distance. I could hardly see, but as the object billowed, the clarity came to me. Then I understood what it was. Lewis's grey coat. I floated towards it. I reached to grab the coat, which was when I saw the needles. No, not the needles. Glass. Shards. Falling all around me. One piece wedged itself deep in my right elbow. I grimaced, but I was unable to make any noise or movements. But then, as suddenly as the rain had started, it stopped. I looked up with caution, wary of the rain's return, but above me, I saw the grey coat. It was no longer billowing. It was rigid, a shield against the terrible rain. It started falling, slowly at first, but quickly it gained speed. Came upon me and enveloped me completely. It was suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I let out a gasp. And then, oh my goodness, that's a horrible blue. And then the light. It pierced my eye sockets. It's actually burning my eyes, hitting the back of my skull with a hammer on the anvil. It directed all my energy into my lungs and forced out a yell. That helped. Oh my goodness, that's wonderful. That's much more relaxing. Everything became quiet. I could breathe deeply. I noticed someone beside me. He gradually came into focus. Shipman showed his teeth in a big smile. I looked up at him from my laying position on the Murphy bed. He swung his leg over a chair and sat beside me. Thought you'd never come around. What happened? I tried to ask him something, but another bolt of pain raced up my elbow. All I managed was a groan. Relax, PC. Just a few scratches. Quite the auto crash. Flew straight through the front window. They took out a large piece of glass from your right arm. I nodded in agreement. That makes sense. I grimaced as the shake sent a sharp pain through my skull. I mumbled the words, auto crash, to myself. I wondered how bad the accident must have been. Shipman removed a flask from his pocket, unscrewed the top, and handed it to me. Not the best hooch, but might get rid of that banging in your head. I took a swig. I closed my eyes inside a deep breath, as its warmth burned down my throat. I know modern medicine doubts it, but that gulp of moonshine helped. Yeah, it kind of kills the pain, because it kills your senses. I went to give the flask back to Shipman, but he put out a hand to stop me. Hang on to it. Might need another swig after what I'm about to tell you. Propped myself up on my left shoulder. About Green's case. The two of us figured he was going to fake his own death. Shipman... Ooh! He's already been killed! Shipman clicked his tongue to his death and looked towards the floor. That ain't happening. Last night, Connor Green was shot through the heart twice. Ooh! I shouldn't be excited that someone's been brutally murdered, but I am. What? I shouted. The exclamation was impulsive. I swung my legs quickly around and sat on the edge of the bed. My headache had suddenly vanished. Whoa there! Look, been here with you all night, in that chair beside the bed. Just telephoned the station to check in, and that's the rap they gave me. Told them what I'd known from you, and they said they'd chase it up. How do you know it was him? Another involuntary question. I was running on instinct. PC. Faking your death involves a mangled body. Shot through the chest, his face is still intact. Whatever Green was planning on doing, he didn't get that far. And we looked it up for you. He doesn't have a twin. That'd be too easy. Shipman grinned. Green hired you for this case, he continued. Gives you every right to follow it up if you want. That said, he was likely taking you for a ride. Wouldn't blame you if you wanted to drop it. But I'd like your help, PC. You know the case. Could use your head, even if it's been a little bumped. Once you're feeling better, I'll be at the station. Come find me there. Ooh. Shipman stood up and cracked his back. Maybe I'll catch some shut-eye on top of my desk too. Sure beats that chair you got. He turned and walked out. Ooh. I stood up from the creaking bed and surveyed the cluttered apartment. Oh, hello. The cat slept at the foot of the bed. I scratched behind his ear and he seemed to like it. The apartment was already cramped when the Murphy bed was down. Up, when it down, I could barely squeeze through the living room. Oh, the table was there. Yeah, that's been moved over a bit. That's cool. Okay, I was worried there that would be the end of it. Like, we've solved the case. I like having a little bit of a twist. It makes things more interesting. And I don't have any goals, so let's limp. Let's limp. I stared at the doorway and took a deep breath. I suppose I owed Shipman enough to help solve the case, even if Green had given me the runaround. After all, what type of detective would leave a case half solved? Let's limp to the police station. Although Green had just been using me, his life had apparently been in danger all along. I resolved to find his killer. I headed to the North Beach station for any information Shipman could give me before starting the chase. I grabbed a taxi cab and told the driver where I wanted to go. I thought about talking with him on our way. Let's talk. I started talking with the driver who began speaking about his recent European vacation. Went to Normandy on a steamliner. Let's ask about it. Oh, the Olympic was grand. Excellent machine. Crossed the Atlantic in 5 days. Plenty of amenities in their new tourist cabins too. Asked about Normandy. He pinched his nose between thumb and forefinger and shook his head from side to side. I could see why these immigrants keep flooding in. That entire old world stinks. You know they eat frogs and snails? No. Steamline is where I want to be. Next time I'll just stay on the boat. He still had the frown on his face as we pulled to the destination. The headquarters building dominated the corner of Kearney and Washington. We've looked at it before. Thought it looked even more sound than it had before. I stepped out of the taxi cab and walked towards the station doors, ready to chase any leads on Green. Standing in front of me as I entered, bawling her eyes from their sockets, was Mrs. Green. She saw me and brought her wailing closer. Malone, she exhaled through her sobbing. You were working for my husband. What happened? Her breathing obscured her next sentences, but I got the general idea. I told her I knew as little about the matter as she did, but that I was looking into it, and I was sure the officers were doing their best. She begged me to help them, again drowning most of her sentences with her sobbing. I promised I would try. She took a small inhale, raised her chest, and walked out of the station. When she was out of sight, Fred Grant came around the corner and let out a snort. Grant was another investigator for the SFPD. I noted his wispy hair, more grey and thin than I'd seen it last. A cigar often poked through his mouth, hardening his jaw and twisting his face into a scowl. I suppose that was an appropriate look for a man who enjoyed the sinister parts of police work. I wondered if he still took his bribes in liquid form. Grant had never been a supporter of policewomen, and he was certainly no fan of mine. He lit the cigar and said, "The widow seems pretty torn up about him. You really helping her out?" I said I was, and he gave another snort. Figures she'd go to you after we told her no. I raised a questioning eyebrow. Look, last thing I gotta do is head to the tin spoon, then this goes in the freezer. This meant he was about to close the case cold. You aren't chasing it up? I asked. He looked appalled that I would even ask. We got more to deal with than some dead gangster. The captain don't care about stuff like this, so as long as it's not spreading too far. What about the girl? What did she expect? He asked. This broad goes and marries an Irishman. Probably killed by one of his own, or some dago. All those bums run together. I don't like you. I gave him a frown, to which he responded, Look, if the missus wants you on this, that's her gamble, but I ain't gonna lead you nowhere. Don't expect support from the boys. Not even if I find Green's killer. If you got a confession, we'll cop him. Not something the DA can thumb his nose at either. We've got to admit 3 things. Means, how they killed Green. Opportunity, when they did it. Motive, why they'd bother. You do that, then sure, we'll be right behind you. But there ain't nobody here looking into it, I promise. He pulled on a cap, walked out. I held a glare in Grant's direction. I was still fuming as I turned down the hallway towards Shipman's office. Shipman was frowning at the stacks of paper atop his desk, but he stood up and smiled when he saw me. Glad you made it. I vented about Grant. Shipman shook his head. Ain't wrong, you know. I must have scowled a mean look at him because he was quick to follow up with. Not that the case is dead, PC, but Captain has nobody on it. Even Grant's coming off as soon as he can. We're underwater with other bunk. So you have nothing for me? Not true. Twomp still did the regular foxtrot. He tossed me a beige folder. Inside was a large black and white photograph of Green's face. Muscles relaxed and eyes closed. He looked almost normal, apart from his flattened hat behind his head. Oh my goodness, they murdered a hat. This requires investigation. And the dirt and grass behind it. The report behind the picture noted 3 important clues. First, that Green died at midnight the previous night. I cursed myself that I'd been so close to stopping it. Second, that Green was killed with two .45 caliber bullets to the chest. Those slugs weren't from a pea shooter. Green was killed by a mean gun. Finally, Green was found this morning laying in Washington Square Park. That was only a block away from the Tin Spoon. I noted each of those facts and gave the folder back to Shipman. All we got, Shipman said, laying the folder back on his desk. Can pinch the gunman if you can prove the case, but you've got to solve it without much support. Don't have time to help either. No point coming back here until you've got your man. At least I'm on a case, I said. It's good enough to leave me tickled pink. Shipman laughed. But listen, we need a confession on this one. Captain doesn't want to run around. Right. Grant mentioned they'd have to admit to how, why, and when they killed him. That's it. Prove that, we'll pick him up. Never been on a murder before, right? Can get tensed. Just know, if you accuse someone but can't prove everything, they'll turn like a switch. Might like you 1 minute but hate you the next. Chatting with folks is your easiest route to more information, but won't get any banter after you accuse someone of murder. So be careful who you accuse. Could make your case harder if you go the wrong way. Alright, I get it, I said, and I internalized it. And remember, Shipman concluded, plenty of lies out there, but you can contradict means, motive, or opportunity with anything in your notes. I thanked him and walked out of his office. Okay. Wow. So you've got like a little tutorial with the cat. Then you've got like this prologue, getting you used to running around. Ooh. I stood outside the police station and went over the mantra. I had to prove means, motive, and opportunity for anyone I suspected of the murder. Once I found all three for a single person, I'd have him licked. I started out to begin the chase. Right. Right. Prove means, opportunity, motive. So, in order to find Green's killer out, in order to the case was a possible suspect, could look for Tiny Paul. His motive, because we don't have any ideas about means or opportunity, but his motive would certainly be, maybe he found out that it wasn't, like, we referenced the fact that it wasn't actually from Vancouver. He may have figured that out, and so that's his motive. Redstone Stable, maybe he didn't know it was a fake thing and wanted to off him. And, Fanny Green, it could just be a case of jealousy. Maybe she didn't believe us and decided to go and kill him. We haven't got any other bits of evidence. The interesting thing at the moment is that Mrs. Green was following her husband. Why was she doing that? Let's go to Green's house. Mrs. Green had pleaded with me at the police station. I hope she would be more helpful than she had been the previous day. I don't know if there'll be new evidence, but we might find something. I gave the address, and let's talk to the driver. We had some idle banter. He was a jovial, middle-aged man, joking and laughing often. The conversation turned to my profession. A working girl, he said, and his mane hardened slightly. And such a dangerous gig. I told him it wasn't as bad as he probably thought. Well, I'm a bit old-fashioned when it comes to these things. To me, motherhood is the most saintly work. I'm sad many flappers are turning it away. What do you mean? I will disagree. I disagreed. I'm sure being a mother isn't easy, I said, but any woman should have the right to choose her work, and there's no reason she can't do both. He couple of times and said, "What for? I have a niece thinks same as you. Problem is, a working girl earns half what her husband gets, and she won't ever go as far. Mrs. President, not in 100 years." This was written this year. And then the poor girl comes home drained as the last drop of whiskey. Now she's too tired, she's left to cook or clean for the kids. Can't both parents share responsibility? He nods vigorously. Of course, I didn't mean that a father plays no role, but raising a family is a full-time gig. Why strain a marriage? It's no wonder divorce is so common. And what happens to the children of a broken home? Are we giving up our values for a new roadster? I'd hate to see what the young'uns after us do. Might burn the entire world down. We pulled up to my destination. I nodded thanks and left the taxicab. Nothing new in there, I don't think. I came upon the Green house and knocked on the door. This time, Mrs. Green opened it quickly. "Miss Malone," she panted with noticeable shock in her eyes. "I'm just frightened about people knocking at my door," she said by way of explanation. "What happened to my husband? Everything feels so cold. Oh, I'm blabbering. Please come inside." She led the way to 2 chairs and we sat down. She was more awake than the previous day, but her hair was a bit tousled, and her S's hung in the air long enough to belie her lack of complete sobriety. "Alright, have you found anything about my husband's killer?" she asked. I shook my head. and replied that there was nothing definitive just then. I said I would need to ask her some questions that might spark the investigation. Let's accuse her straight out. Ask about my notes. So, right. Following her husband. She had followed her husband because she'd suspected infidelity. How did you end up at Southern Coffee yesterday? I told you, I followed Connor to your apartment. I became furious when I saw he was calling on another woman. So why were you shadowing him to begin with? Oh, that! Well, I had heard rumours that Connor might have been unfaithful. I discovered they were baseless, but, well, a wife never truly knows. That's why I followed you all the way to Southern Coffee. I had to know the truth, Miss Malone. Okay. The tin spoon. You're a jazz singer with a tin spoon. She gave a languid nod. I wondered how she'd started singing, so I asked about her roots. Well, Papa never liked the petting parties, or the liquor, or the young men in roadsters, but he never made a fuss about it, not until I started to sing. It's enough to get a girl disowned. I suppose I was a teenage prima donna looking for attention. Okay, when were you raised? I questioned. She smiled, but there was a hint of cruelty behind it. I'm a Stern, Miss Malone, the only child of Abraham and Elise. My maternal grandmother was Frances Strauss, sister of Levi. Your father is that Abraham Stern? He now owns a full quarter of the Levi Strauss Company. And you're wondering how I came to this? I imagine she would have cackled, but the laudanum kept her emotions muted. Well, I traded wealth for freedom at a young age, and I would do it again. I understood her reasoning. I nodded and changed the subject back to the case. Okay. The coat. The coat. I glanced at the coat that hung on the rack. Where did you get that? I asked. Her unfocused eyes moved to the grey trench. Connor brought it home one day. It was too small for his frame, but I thought it looked swell on me. Seems built for a man, I said. Sure, but it's the freedom age, darling. We can wear anything or even nothing at all. Okay. Right. I can ask about... let's ask about Green. Says he's from Oakland, but nobody knows him before 1920. Seems your husband was from St. Louis, I put to her. She squirmed but said nothing, so I pressed her. Mrs. Green, I'm investigating his death. You're right. He told me he was from out east, though he lied to everyone else. He claimed he had to flee from his past. I never asked the details, that's all I know, and you're the first person I've told. He also had 2 train tickets to get there, I continued. He wanted to return. Well, those tickets have no date printed on them. She paused, looking at me from underneath long lashes, and continued. He was thinking of going back there. I guess whatever trouble he had was blowing over, but I refused. I told him I wanted to stay in San Francisco. Whenever Connor and I quarrelled, a sharp wavering inhale cut off a sentence. Well, he kept them around to brandish, to show me that he loved me, and that he stayed here only for me. I nodded and we spoke about something else. Okay.